Awards can crown careers, shape reputations, and signal what a culture values the most. But do they truly create change, or do they just reflect it? Today on Articulate, we're joined by Jessica Palalagi, the General Manager of the Arts Foundation Te Tumu. We'll explore the power of philanthropy, what awards really mean, and how generosity and recognition intersect to sustain the arts. Thank you so much for coming in today, Jess. It's so nice to have you here in Wellington.
So amazing to actually land on a plane here, given the weather. So, yeah.
You're here. We're so glad. We're lucky. We're blessed.
Amazing.
Our core question today, Jess, is do awards and recognition truly shape the cultural landscape, or do they mostly reflect what society already values? What's your response to that?
Brilliant, cool question. I think without sort of deflecting, I think they can do both. So much of the awards and recognition can actually bring more artistry and artists to light. But at the same time, I think who gives them and who supports them financially, I think that speaks volumes of what we value in society. So, yeah, I think they have the ability to do both. And I think they can really amplify artists and art practices specifically that perhaps would be overlooked or perhaps not as valued. I think they also speak to the times. So for us specifically at the Arts Foundation, Te Tumu Toi, awarding a typographer in 2019 was really significant, Chris Salisbury. A landscape architect and Megan Wright. So, we've continued to try and push the boundaries of what we consider art to be.
You touched on a little bit of this there, but what role do awards like the laureates play in an artist's journey, both symbolically and practically?
Yeah, I mean, practically, they come with a financial gift. So that kind of speaks for itself. It's also an untagged amount of money, which they can do whatever they want with, which I think is really significant because it again, encourages the autonomy and the agency of the artist. So it doesn't need to be a work or it doesn't need to be focused on a specific outcome. They can have the control to decide. So I guess with that comes freedom. A lot of artists have talked about the freedom the award can bring for a next step, for a specific project. I think they provide recognition and a visibility. So, I think artists have also mentioned that they feel seen, the toiling away in the studio or the constant being on tour, being away from their family has actually amounted to something. So, yeah, I think visibility, I think freedom, I feel like it's fuel to keep going. Like it's really a push that what they do is worthwhile and they should continue to do it.
I also wanted to ask about young people, Jess,
yeah.
and just younger generations in general. I
Yeah.
feel like they're a bit more skeptical or have more skepticism, cynicism about institutions. How does the foundation keep awards like the laureates relevant and inspiring for those people as well, not just holding up space for maybe our more senior established community,
Yeah, totally. I think something we've also been cognizant of is that, artists are at different points in their career. So the laureates is for an artist at a specific point where we can point to an outstanding body of work, but also the sort of fuel to keep going. I think Springboard has been a breakthrough for younger generations, and that is really focusing on not emerging artists, but early career. So they have to have established a sort of a relationship or an intention to be an artist. And I think what that has done, because it's by nomination and anyone can nominate an artist for that award, that's helped sort of level out, I think, some of maybe that skepticism of who gets to choose who the winners are. We also like to call them recipients because winners can also be a really loaded term. But I think having that early career award has really helped. I think too, probably unknown to a lot of people is we do quite a few workshops for boosted in tertiary institutes. So we visit AUT, Massey, Vic Uni, and for us it's like we're not only talking about boosted as a platform, as a crowdfunding platform, but we're also making them aware of things like the laureates and Springboard so they can see the breadth of who we are. And in that, it's pretty much an AMA. They can ask me anything around the foundation, and I'm quite happy to answer questions. So I hope that we've been able to be authentic and be transparent about who we are. I think it's super essential that we do engage younger generations because the philanthropy has to continue. And, we always want to ensure that the next generation understands what philanthropy could look like, and that it is about building a community. I think that's what's really unique about what we're trying to do. It's not just about galvanizing a fund. It's actually like, how can we bring people together and how can they be a part of this community? Yeah.
I want to get into philanthropy more, actually, Jess, because this is at the core of the foundation's mission,
Absolutely.
right? Getting money to artists, to creatives. A lot of people are really happy to donate to health or education causes, maybe a bit more hesitant donating to the arts.
Yeah.
Why is that? Like, what is the issue there, do you think?
I think it's a couple of things, but I think sort of off the bat, it's just not seen as essential. I don't think it's perceived that it could be woven into some of these more challenging issues like health, like education. It's sort of reserved for, I guess, a certain tranche of people, but it's maybe seen as the thing you do afterwards, so like if something traumatic or you've had an experience that has not been good, then you turn to the arts because that's a salve, but actually the arts can provide, I think, a solution to lots of those really challenging questions and scenarios that we have. But I think the perception is that it is not essential, which I think we've all been striving to change. I think the interesting dynamic between arts and entertainment as well. So, people may not see what they watch on TV or music that they listen to as an art form because it's part of an industry that moves differently. And again, because we're across all art forms, we have the kind of the blessing and the burden of seeing all this amazing artistry and figuring out how to support it. I just don't think that people think about perhaps also supporting the whole artist journey. You buy a ticket to a show, you're like, oh, I'm supporting the art form, but it's like that's the end product and doesn't even cover the hours and hours and hours of blood, sweat and tears that we know artists put into work. So yeah, I think it's quite interesting. It's probably perceived as a bit more transactional because by going and attending and buying something, you are supporting the arts, which of course you are, and you're supporting the ecosystem around the arts, but it's so much more than that. Yeah.
What kind of stories, Jess, or approaches has the foundation found actually get people to go beyond that stage of just buying a ticket?
I mean, it's challenging for us because we're quite intangible, Like, I think some people would say we're pure vibes. But because we are about engaging and connecting with people, it may seem as though, what are we actually doing, So for us, we need to ensure that we kind of Homer Simpson in the bush, like we go backwards and the artists come forward,
Yes.
So I think bringing the artists to events and showcasing, commissioning works from them, putting them across every platform we can, across every network, what is our sphere of influence is, I'd like to think, quite large. So, I think if we can keep profiling and amplifying what the artists are saying about what we do and about how important it is to support via philanthropy, that's a major coup and a major strategy for us. So yeah, I think when people hear from artists directly, I think that can really change their mind. When you experience an art form in person, I think that can be really beautiful and often is very, again, it's all quite ephemeral. So it is really quite hard. I mean, we look at Boosted, which can, support up to $2 million through that platform every year. And that is probably a side of philanthropy that people don't think about because they're like, oh, it's Boosted, it's crowdfunding, it's not the same. But actually, people who support with $5, that is philanthropy, And so for us, it's like, how do we continue to show that? How do we continue to galvanize that community? And it could be mum and dad and your brothers and your sisters and stuff like that, but you're still part of something. You're still supporting the arts. You're still seeing this artist and saying, I support what you want to do. I support this project,
Where do you see that type of giving, Jess, like through Boosted or even just any philanthropy that the foundation galvanizes sitting within kind of core investment in the arts, alongside government, for example, or public investment, even local government? Or does it play a bit of a different role? Like, do you see it as kind of serving a similar purpose?
I think it's really interesting because we know, I mean, the genesis of the Arts Foundation was to fund what couldn't be funded by the public sector, so we have this history and an entwined sort of beginning with Creative New Zealand and the Arts Council. But I don't really think it's about philanthropy filling all of the gaps. If anything, what we see is it's able to so at first it's untagged funds. So I think that's great. It's not contestable funding. We don't fund a project. We fund the artist. I think for us, there's a real humanist aspect that always runs through. We are about funding the person behind the art, and how do they continue to thrive and succeed in their chosen art form. So I do think it's serving a slightly different purpose. I think we can also fund, or we can seek funding for art forms that might be fall into the gaps of the current funders or grant makers. I think it just brings a bit more freedom. It brings also relationship. So there is a real opportunity within philanthropy to actually build a relationship with a patron. Or, I mean, patrons are just, I think we think of that word and we're like, ooh, that sounds old, But when you think about a patron, that could just be someone who regularly turns up to your thing,
right?
Like a patron, like someone at a bar.
Patron saint.
Totally, right? Yeah. They just keep showing up for you. And so when I think about that type of patron, I'm like, oh, that's really cool because you could actually build something together, and that is like, these are kind of like art super fans, They just really love being a part of something so creative, but also, I do feel like the philanthropy and the private funding does definitely play a role, but I do think that broadly, as you've said, there is an underinvestment in the arts, and philanthropy can't fill every gap, and that's evident from numbers in terms of what, the remit of the public sector and what they can fund versus what we're able to do. But I do think that we bring a connectivity that is, super important to the space, yeah.
I want to pick up on something you said earlier, Jess, around the conflation of arts and entertainment a bit and get into more some of the bigger misconceptions around arts philanthropy, because I feel like that goes to the heart a little bit of, people think of the arts as glamorous or celebrity homes and Hollywood starlets and expensive jewelry, clothing.
Yeah.
Often not the reality, the complete opposite of the reality, actually, for many artists, practicing artists. What are some of the other big misconceptions in arts philanthropy?
I think the biggest misconception is that it's for old people. It's for rich people. It's for people who are chasing a status, that there's a high level status that can be acquired by going to these things. I think that it's often seen as elitist, which we come across, all the time. And, and I celebrate with, a lot of glee when I look around the room and I'm like, this is not an elite room. And if it is elite, it's elite to everybody, And I think that's what we are always trying to reflect, is that the audience needs to broaden, it needs to change, and we need to do that generationally as well as across the nation. It's not just names on walls. I think a lot of people think philanthropy is like, a wing at a gallery and things like that, but it's so much more.
Plaque on a chair.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one form that's so great because that works in a very tangible way, and it can help with a very with a capital cost of something. So I get that. But it's so much more than that. And I just think, there's some terrible kind of misconceptions. And, one of the awesome things I get to do by leading this organization is just dispel them. I love being underestimated and sort of like diffusing people and kind of like, wow, I didn't think about it that way. So, and I think too, like artists are also philanthropists. I think we kind of think there's a binary happening here and it's one and the other. But just recently in our Supernova campaign, so many of those donors that gave, I think it was about 250 odd, they were artists. They were other artists who were like, I see the value in what you're doing. I know this is going to support other artists, and it's like they just feel so good that they're actually able to support. So, yeah, I think it's a lot more nuanced than people realize. Yeah.
Yeah, and they get it as well, which is the key.
Totally.
That act of giving, Jess,
Mm.
do you think the act of giving can be seen in itself as a creative, cultural act almost, not just for financial purposes or gain?
Oh, 100%. I think the default positioning is that giving equals money, and there's some sort of transactional thing that is happening. But yeah, because we are so focused on bringing a community of givers together, that can look so different all the time. And I do feel as though it is, and the way you've described it as a cultural act or an act of creativity, I really resonate with that, because it can be so much more. It's not just a transaction that happens. It's actually like building something together, so that act of creation, of creating together, of continuing to just work in unity, I think is really cool too. So and it can look like time, it can look like experience, it can look like advice, it can look like accountability, it can be all these things that perhaps we just don't think about like as a source of creation.
To round out this conversation, Jess, how do you see the role of arts philanthropy and awards evolving over time in our kind of changing cultural landscape here in Aotearoa?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question, and it's something that I'm really cognizant of, because we rely so much on people. Like we talk about being powered by people, and that is 100%.
It's the truth.
It's the truth. Yeah. So you have to remain relevant for people to understand who you are. So I think just reflecting on how we started, I think a lot of it is listening, like not only talking, making sure that there's a reciprocity of communication that's happening, and it's not just our messages being blasted out into the ether, and I think it's about continuing, like wanting to change. I think when people are like, you've changed, and it's like, well, you're supposed to, like it's not about being static. And I think that the foundation continues to have to change, whether that's through the board, through leadership, through the way that we award artists, whether that means we look beyond the awards that we currently do and think about how we can expand those, looking at new art forms, new artists. I think just being very receptive to how the sector changes. It's quite mercurial. You just kind of have to be like water, ready to kind of go with it. I think the more that we remain static, I think that's not where we need to be.
I think just finally, Jess, you've brought an object in from your creative life to share with us today. Can you tell us what it is and what's the story behind it?
Okay,
You're fishing into your pocket. Oh my gosh.
So this
Tender.
is Tender. This is a little artwork by Daniel von Sturmer.
Wow.
It looks like a post-it note, but it's actually aluminium.
It's hard.
Yeah, it's aluminium.
It looks like someone's written it with a Sharpie and kind of all caps.
Yeah, so it's an aluminium. I mean, not being disloyal to the foundation, but this is Daniel von Sturmer. He's born in Aotearoa but lives in Melbourne. And they're just little post-it works, and they look like a post-it note. And these are coordinates. No, and they're you stick them on the wall, and they speak to the sort of ever-changing nature of language. I like it because tender immediately I think of being tender to somebody, but then I also think of legal tender, which makes me think of money. Yes. So yeah, I love this. It's on the wall at home in my kitchen, and I just thought it would be cool to bring along. It's very small, fits in the pocket.
Does it have a magnet on the back?
Yeah, it does. So it's a little magnet, and then you can just hang it up, and it just kind of hovers in the space against the wall.
I love this idea of like it isn't what it looks like as well,
100%.
which I feel like is also very relevant and applicable to everything we discuss.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that sort of subterfuge I really love.
Underestimated.
Totally. I let my nephew hold this. He immediately threw it on the floor, and it just bounced
Didn't
because it's
break.
aluminium.
Didn't crumple.
So it's childproof. But yeah, I just really love it. I think it's really beautiful. It's simple. I love language. I love that you have so many meanings with words, and it appears to be something that it's not. So it's really cool. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much for coming in today, Jess.
Of
So
course.
appreciate your time.
Yeah, no worries.
That was Jessica Palalagi, offering a candid look at how awards and giving can both reflect and reshape our cultural landscape. I'm André Chumko, and this was Articulate. If you want to stream more episodes like this, visit our YouTube channel at thepost-nz or find our episode archive at thepost.co.nz/articulate. I'll see you next time.